So let's get started. So first, I introduce Omar de Frias, founder and CEO of Fratello Cigars, and we're here in the Dominican Republic. You are in Santo Domingo. I am in Punta Cana. I'm excited to have this conversation. Both Dominican transplants to the U.S. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Just how you grew up, when you went to the States, and then also how you went from NASA analyst to cigars.
Yeah, so I own Fratello Cigars. I started Fratello Cigars in 2013. It's been an incredible experience, obviously, so far, but it's not my background. I started working for NASA in 2004 after graduating from college in Puerto Rico. I did my master's at the University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez. And I have been involved with cigars for the majority of my life. I mean, I've been smoking premium cigars since I was 17 years old. One of the things that was most important, honestly, was the fact that I wanted to kind of like, I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. Even when I was at the agency, I was at NASA for almost 12 years. I always had this entrepreneurial spirit about, creating something from scratch, creating something that is my own, and honestly, having the opportunity to make that business something that connects me to my country is a dream come true. So I worked at NASA for about 12 years. My last job, I was the director of the budget for science. I managed a $5.2 billion budget as the execution of that budget, and I basically I was curious. I was a curious guy. I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I started Fratello as a passion project that ended up translating into a business. So it allowed me to depart the agency from 2016 and dedicating myself in full time to Fratello Cigar.
And the way that you started it, if I understand, is you one day said, you know what, I'm going to travel to countries where I know you have good tobacco that's being produced, and I'm going to test leaves and figure it out. Um, did you have help along the way? What were some of the challenges starting this business?
Some help along the way for sure. More naysayers than yaysayers. There's always the when you're starting any business, especially when you're working at NASA and you have this particular, you know, very unique set of skills in this agency that people question why. What are you doing with trying to start your own business? What are you doing with trying to, branch out and do something entirely different than what you're doing right now? People always question it, right? So for me, it was kind of very important to kind of like, not only say, what, I actually can do this, and I feel very passionate about, tobacco. I've been smoking cigars since I was 17 years old, Catherine. I mean, I was one of the things that made Fratello so unique, and the things that we do is the incredible passion that goes behind this project and goes behind, the craftsmanship of premium cigars in my country. That is world renowned for producing some of the best cigars in the world. So I wanted to do something that connected me to the island. I wanted to do something that I felt incredibly passionate about. And obviously, it blossomed to the point that after I started Fratello, I was able to leave the agency in 2016 to dedicate myself full time to premium cigars. So not an easy project, not an easy thing to do, but
And so, what's been the process since you started the company, right? Obviously, it is a highly regulated industry. In addition to the fact that um, you have to deal with import export laws as well. So, what have you learned from this process that can maybe help another business owner that's looking to start a similar type of endeavor? What have you learned? I'm sure you can write a book.
yeah, on earth. Okay. How do you put in perspective learning how to manage your learning how to deal with regulation, learning how to manage the fact that that COVID almost completely destroyed my business, learning how to bring in the right talent to congregate around your brand and understand your culture and really understand where you're going, so that it makes sense for them to really get behind you. I mean, we honestly would probably spend an entire day just on that question alone, because there is so much complexity gathering with everything that you do on such a highly regulated industry. Regulation honestly is probably the number one killer of any business, and we deal with regulation not only in the U.S. The U.S. is actually, although there is a lot that happens with regulation in the United States,
And
it
a
we
lot
have
happening now.
there
We're
is
gonna get to that.
we're gonna get to that, but it's such a highly regulated industry across the United States in the entire world. The U.S. actually benefits from not having some of the other terrible regulations of something as beautiful and as premium as the beautiful box of the cigar that I'm actually smoking right now. Where in other countries, in the United States, we benefit from having this beautiful craftsmanship of something that is made by hand. This is made by hand. This is made by hand. Over 300 plus hands are involved in just manufacturing a premium cigar. But it's also the industries that are aligned to it as well, that have such a big impact around it, right? Like, this is something that a group of people put together by hand to bring it to the United States and be part of a particular culture, right? Uh, the world is, people outside of the United States do not benefit from things like this. We do business with over 30 countries, and people like, for example, we do business in Qatar, Dubai, the United Kingdom, and all these different places, Catherine, have all their own regulation about they want to cover this with like warning labels, or want to cover your entire box, or do not want to showcase the band of a cigar. And so all of these things have a tremendous impact into what we do. So the fact that regulation kills and brings business down is something that, you know, number one is obviously the biggest threat to any business as a whole, but even more so when it comes to a more controlled industry and more regulated industry like cigars. So,
And not to say that regulation is not all bad. I mean, the fact is that you do need some checks and balances in terms of how our society functions and we do business. But I think one of the things we're going to talk about today is the new tariffs that are being proposed by the administration, and how potentially that impacts someone like you who, as you said, has 300 people helping to build your brand as a successful entrepreneur, and who gets primary products from abroad. So those are some of the things that we're going to cover in a minute. I saw a couple of new people join. Again, this is Catherine Pichardo, President and CEO at Latino Victory, and I'm here joined by Omar de Frias, founder and CEO of Fratello Cigars, and we're having a night of cocktails, cigars, and politics. And so, of course, Omar, I'm very proud of the work we do at Latino Victory in terms of building political power for our community, a community that oftentimes is marginalized, right? And so I love the fact that we could bring you as a success story of someone who is making a difference, right? And building a brand and raising your children. So I'm very proud of the road that you have taken, and certainly it's part of the immigrant experience, right? That entrepreneurial spirit. So I'm excited about learning a little bit more about that. Um, but let me ask you, uh, are you political? Do you vote? Like, tell me, much has been said about Latino men and especially the impact they had in the 2024 election. You don't have to tell me who you voted
You really
for.
want to know? Do you really want to
No,
know?
I really don't. I don't want to know. But listen, we are at a moment in our country that none of us can afford to sit it out, right? And so I think it's important to have these conversations where we have a gut check around what people are really thinking. And like I said, many folks in last year's election had to make decisions about how they were going to cast their ballots. Um, President Trump received 46% of the Latino vote and 55% of Latino men. So it's something that we're solving for because very much we understand at Latino Victory that we need to uplift the work that goes into voter education, voter engagement, fighting disinformation, as well as the candidate work that we do with Latinos all around the country. So my first question was, did you vote?
I did.
Okay, good. So you're not
Are
one
you
of those
ready for this?
disengaged Latinos. So check for that. I'm glad to hear it. And tell me your thoughts on the whole political process and how you think things went down.
So I voted to change the last administration. And I'll be open with you about this because a lot of people vote on a lot of people vote based on their beliefs. A lot of people vote based on their what's going to affect their bottom line. I vote for common sense, and I vote specifically for things that can affect my livelihood. And so something that was heavily impacted by various administrations. And again, you know, Catherine, I can be very blunt with you because I don't think that there's any need, honestly, for any checks and balances of any kind.
We don't
And I
have to
think
pretend.
you don't have to
I
pretend.
know.
I'm already having a drink here, so you're gonna get the blunt truth. We the biggest thing that can kill a business is regulation. And overly regulation. I'll tell you my voting record very openly. I voted for Obama on both terms. I voted for Trump on both terms. So I don't have any political party that I affiliate myself with, or any particular movement that moves the needle one way or another. For me, I honestly do not associate or affiliate in any particular way, shape, or form. I do believe in some common sense stuff, and I'll tell you, like, I voted for Obama twice. Obama voted to have in some of the decisions and the decision making to have some of the most outrageous regulations in the cigar industry we have ever seen. Something that could have honestly destroyed, quite honestly, the entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurial spirit of a lot of people that are trying to create products in the Dominican Republic, which exports over $1.4 billion worth of cigars into the United States, and segregate, by just simply tagging a premium cigar that includes, you know, tobacco, like raw, dark herb cured tobacco, and put us in the same boat as a cigarette, and we are not. And that was a big challenge that we kept on fighting. The and informing that administration about, like, hey, if you do go forward with these regulations in the 2016, I would have been out of business completely by 2018, just because of the way that the FDA decided to regulate premium cigars. And so, just to give you a small idea of how that, and how that kind of evolved, they would basically say that if a brand was not grandfathered from 2007 and prior, it would have to go through multiple hoops of regulations to be able to have a product to be able to display into a cigar shop. That would have taken me out of business, because that means I started my brand in 2013, so that would have completely taken me out of business, because I would not have been I would not have the power or the ability to to produce a product was that was that was not grandfathered in, which was part of the regulation. Thank God, as of a few years back, that regulation was completely knocked down, and we were able to continue to be in business. But that would have been something, and that was something that I voted heavily, obviously, against after that administration was done, to make sure that I can keep my rights to be able to produce premium cigars and give something back. So fast forward to 2020, different regulations and different things and different measures came into place as well, which unfortunately it has nothing to do with a political affiliation. Catherine, it has nothing to do with the fact that the administration wanted to get rid of, small businesses, which we are such a tiny industry. We're not even, 1/10 of the whole tobacco business of cigarettes and snuff tobacco and all these different things. We are a small sliver, but they bulk us all together because of lack of knowledge. And so that was the biggest challenge that I saw in the in talking to members of Congress and letting them know, hey, we're not the same. This is not a filtered product. This is something that comes from a handmade premium cigar that has such a big effect in the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. It might be a small sliver of the industry in the United States, spec, but in our countries, it's a big, big, big deal.
Yes. And I think part of what makes it important to the narrative in the States, though, is that there are entrepreneurs like yourself who live in the States, pay taxes in the States, and who are building uh, a brand and a global business. Um, so it benefits our economy as well. So a lot of folks, by the
100%.
way, think that, oh well, because something is made somewhere else and you bring it over, maybe it doesn't benefit our economy. But there are a number of different ways in which that happens. I will say raised a very interesting point in terms of how and why people vote, right? And how and why people voted the way they did in 2024. The fact is, you're uh, pointing to one specific piece of legislation that you understood was potentially a killer for your business, and that based on a narrative that you understood was, make or break, um, you made your voice be heard, right? And so I think the important thing there is number one that you voted, but also I think wouldn't it be fair to say that there's so many issues that people deal with, and sometimes do you feel like there are certain disinformation and narratives that exist that maybe we don't even know what's what anymore, right? Because, for example, you talk about regulation. How do you feel about the new tariffs that are being proposed? And would that be make or break for your business?
Yeah, so you bring up another great point. Like I said, I'm a very common sense kind of guy. I think that the way that this administration has gone around and in creating and imposing some of these tariffs on some of these countries so violently, because honestly, it's been some of the stuff has been outrageous. I think, you know, everybody on the left, in the middle, on the right, it doesn't really matter. We all agree that there has to be a process. You cannot just impose just you know random tariffs just because you're trying to make a particular point without really understanding the effect of those tariffs with those businesses. Now, that said, it is a I
So,
also
so do you feel like you were let down a little bit?
a little bit, um,
A lot
a
of people
little
started
bit,
to feel like that. So I'm curious. I'm asking for a friend.
a little bit, but only because of the way that it was managed. Not because I believe tariffs are wrong, but because you cannot spread the narrative of, hey, you know, we've been ripped off by XYZ country. We have been impacted by, all of these countries have been, you know, it's so much harder to do business in some of these places and whatnot. And by the way, I full heartedly agree with the premise of, the United States is probably one of the most noble countries in the world, if not the most noble country in the world to do business with, because it makes easy access to capital, it makes easy access to business for us to enjoy the ability to create work and to create jobs. But the way that it was rolled out is where I have an issue with. Okay, so right now I'll give you an example. Nicaragua. I produce in Nicaragua and I produce in Dominican Republic. Nicaragua, it was imposed an 18% tariff, versus Dominican Republic was imposed a 10% tariff. The 10% tariff is something that we can work around as long as you give us time. If you self-impose and you say, "Hey, here we go, everybody has to pay 10%. If this is over, this is how it goes," or 30 or 40%, just randomly. There are some businesses that now are dealing with importing products from Brazil, and because there was a disconnect within the Brazilian government and the United States, now some of these businesses are going to have to face 50% tariff. You cannot tell me that you're imposing tariffs to say, "Oh, these countries have been ripping us off." I am the importer of record. I am the one paying these tariffs. I am the one that has to give a new sticker shock to my customers because for some reason you feel or you have a necessity to send a message. Do not disagree with the fact that something has to occur for my business to also operate better in China or in the Dominican Republic or in Switzerland or in the European Union, because we do get a short end of a stick in a lot of these places that make it much easier for people within to grow their companies and to grow their brands versus I, I'll give you an example. China. I have been trying to do business in China for the last 10 years, but it has been impossible, Catherine, because of they promote for only their products to be sold better in over there. They self-impose minimums and of products that can be distributed. They give licenses only whenever they see fit. It is a terrible country, honestly, to do business with. I would love for the opportunity to do business in China, which is a gigantic market. But President Trump is absolutely right about this. There has to be there is a need for smaller businesses to be able to get into some of these countries and be able to operate in a for more free flow capital environment. However, do I agree that you have to? Yeah, do I agree with the fact that you cannot just go ahead and just self-impose and just go crazy and see how we're going to figure it out and this is what the tariff is going to be?
Well,
No, I do not agree with that.
no, and I'm glad you say that because I think that for a lot of things, that as you say, you call common sense people, right? For a lot of the policies that quote unquote common sense people can potentially see some value. The fact is that the rollouts of all of these policies have been disastrous. It
They
has
have
been run inefficiently. It has been run haphazardly and in many ways cruelly. And I could name, probably a lot on what's happened with economic policy and what they call the big beautiful bill. That's really a big ugly bill that transfers wealth from people who really need it to folks who don't, in a very methodical way. We could talk about immigration. We could talk about climate. We could talk about guns. There's so many issues, right? Uh, but as it relates to tariffs, it's the same problem, right? It's been completely inefficient. And if you look at the 90 deals in 90 days, well, it's been 90 days and he has closed zero deals. So I do think there's still a lot more for us to see on what happens with this. And, I wanted to have this conversation with you because I guess creates a certain insecurity, right? And anxiety because you don't know what to expect as a business owner. Or has somebody come to you and said, "Hey, this is what's going to happen with your business"?
So I do not disagree with the rollout. I 100% agree with that. I believe there are ways and there are ways, Catherine. We cannot just go out and just self-impose and say, oh, overnight China 145%. If I would have imported, I import about $50,000 worth of lighters and ashtrays and accessories for my business every year from China. You think I'm going to do that right now? There's no possible way I'm going to do this right now because it creates a tremendous uncertainty. So I was very happy that I was able to do this in 2024 on a more free flow environment without having the potential of having to pay instead of 50,000, $125,000 worth of accessories. And this is just again, we're talking small businesses. We're talking about my industry. There's so many different areas, and there's so many different things that obviously it can expand to and explore. However, I do believe that we could stand to get better deals. Have we gotten those deals?
No.
No. Do I feel that they could come? I'm hopeful, right?
uh, we're
Uh,
giving we're giving a lot of credit to an administration that we've already seen is kind of incompetent. But hey, I give you all the credit in the world for being hopeful. And listen, my friend, again very proud of the work that you have done to build this business. Latinos in particular, immigrants in general, um, create jobs and produce GDP as small business owners at a higher rate than any other subgroup. And so, certainly, keep up the good work, keep fighting. I really, really hope that together in the work that we're doing politically, um, we can really continue to build a better America, whatever that means for each of us. But I am always open to these types of conversations, even if we don't agree on everything, um, so that we can discuss how we can make a better America. So
I
I thank you
agree
for your
100%,
time.
Catherine. I will say one thing. I'm hopeful. At the end of the day, it honestly has to come with hope because, regardless of the administration, we want the best for the United States. We want the best for immigrants. I mean, I was the president of the group of Dominican professionals in Washington D.C. I was heavily involved in so many things. Throughout the last 20 years of multiple administrations, and I've seen some things obviously that I agree with, and some ones that I do not. But one thing that we can both agree on, Catherine, is the fact that we definitely want to see a better country. We want to see less hate. We want to see more access for our people and more access to capital, more access for growth. So I think in that sense we do share the exact same feeling. And obviously at the end of the day it does come down to hoping and that things do go for the best. Have that always happened in every single administration? Has every single administration been perfect? No, no, not every single administration. There's not such thing as that level of perfection, but there is something as hope. And obviously this is one of those things that I am hopeful that it will sustain and that we will all come out on a better end on the other side of the road. So nothing else but wait to see. But I do appreciate honestly the invitation. I know again, although we may be in different sides, I respect so much the work that you do, and the things that you do for our community, because we need so much more of it. So I am thankful for that, and I am honestly incredibly thankful for the invitation as well. And hopefully we get a chance to do this again.
Well, absolutely. And I know we're going to win you back.
Love it.
Thank you and good night, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you guys. Bye bye.